Stop for a moment. Before you scroll away, before your thumb moves even one more inch, stop. Because something in you already knows this video is different. You didn't click on this by accident. In a sea of 1,000 other titles, something pulled you toward these exact words at this exact hour of your life. And that is not a coincidence. It's no coincidence that you're here. Most people will watch the first 10 seconds of this and scroll past because they are not ready to hear what comes next. But you're still here, which tells me something about you. It tells me that some part of you has been waiting, maybe for weeks, maybe for years, for someone to finally say out loud what you've quietly suspected all along, that wealth is not something you chase. It is something you remember. You don't chase wealth, you remember it. Say that back to yourself, even silently. Let it sit there for a second. Because everything I am about to share with you today is built on that single idea, an idea that many ancient traditions circled around in their own language, and that some modern explorations of consciousness and quantum perception have started to circle back toward as well, from a completely different direction. There is something many people describe as a hidden quantum gateway, not a place you travel to, but a state you return to, a frequency, a way of perceiving reality that seems to have existed quietly underneath the noise of your everyday life this entire time, waiting for you to notice it. And if you ignore this, if you close this video now and go back to scrolling, you may miss the exact moment your perception was ready to shift. I'm not here to promise you riches will fall from the sky tonight. I'm not here to tell you money is magic. I'm here to walk with you for the next few minutes through a perspective that many people have found reframes their entire relationship with abundance, not as something out there to be captured, but as something already moving through you, waiting to be recognized. Before we go further, I want to invite you to do something small. If this message is landing the way I think it might be landing, if you feel that quiet click of recognition somewhere behind your chest, subscribe now while it's fresh. Not because a channel needs a number, but because subscribing in a strange and real way works like tuning a radio dial to a frequency you want to keep receiving. You're not just following content. You're anchoring yourself to a field of ideas that may keep unfolding for you, video after video, layer after layer. So let's begin. You have probably felt it before. That strange sensation of being at two crossroads in life. One path is familiar. It's the path of continuing exactly as you have been, worrying about money the same way, working the same way, believing the same quiet story that abundance is something reserved for other people, in other circumstances, with other luck. That path is comfortable because it's known. But comfortable and true are not always the same thing. The other path is less familiar. It asks you to consider, just consider, that the story you've been carrying about scarcity might not be the full truth. That there might be a gateway, hidden not in some far-off dimension, but hidden in plain sight, inside your own perception, that changes everything the moment you're willing to look at it differently. You can choose to keep going as before, half asleep to this possibility. Or you can choose, just for these next few minutes, to stay open. I think you already know which one you came here for. Let me tell you what I mean by the hidden gateway, because I don't want this to stay vague or mystical for its own sake. I want it to actually mean something to you by the end of this video. Think about the last time you felt truly, undeniably abundant. Maybe it wasn't about money at all. Maybe it was a quiet morning where nothing was wrong. Maybe it was a moment with someone you love, where time seemed to slow down and you felt, for just a breath, that you had everything you needed, that feeling, that exact sensation in your chest. Some traditions would say that feeling is not a reaction to your circumstances. It is a frequency you were briefly tuned into. And what if that frequency, not the circumstance, but the frequency itself, is the actual gateway? This is where many people get stuck, because they've been taught, quietly, over years, that abundance has to be earned through struggle before it can be felt. Work first, then maybe, someday, feel abundant. But there's another way of seeing it that a growing number of people have started exploring, that the feeling comes first, and the circumstances rearrange themselves around it. Not instantly, not magically, but consistently, the way a plant grows toward the direction of the light it's been given. I know how that might sound to a mind trained in scarcity. It might sound too simple, even naive. And that resistance you might be feeling right now, that voice saying this can't be that simple, is worth noticing, because it might be one of the very things standing between you and the gateway itself. If any part of this is resonating with you, even quietly, even if you're not sure why, leave a comment below with the words, "I remember." Just those two words. Not because I need to see it, but because there's something powerful about publicly naming a shift before you fully understand it. Writing it down, putting it into the world in your own words, tends to make it feel more real than simply thinking it. You don't chase wealth, you remember it. Here is what I mean when I say hidden. It's not hidden because someone is keeping it from you. It's hidden the way the ocean is hidden from a fish that has never known dry land. Not because it's far away, but because it's so close, so constant, so woven into the fabric of everything that it becomes invisible. Your relationship with abundance has likely been running quietly in the background of your mind since childhood, shaping decisions you don't even remember making. And because it's been there so long, it feels less like a belief and more like just the way things are. But beliefs that feel like just the way things are usually the ones worth examining most closely. There are perspectives, some rooted in ancient contemplative traditions, others emerging from newer explorations of consciousness and perception, that suggest reality doesn't simply happen to us. It responds in some way to the state we consistently occupy. Not our wishes, not our wanting, our actual, lived, embodied state. Many people who have spent time with these ideas describe a strange pattern. The moment they stopped gripping wealth with anxious hands and started relating to it with a kind of quiet, grounded trust, things around them, opportunities, conversations, unexpected doors, seemed to move differently. I want to be honest with you. This isn't a guarantee, and I'm not here to promise you specific outcomes. But it's a pattern many people report, across very different lives and circumstances, and patterns like that are worth paying attention to. If this is helping something click into place for you, take a second and tap that like button. Not for me, for you. Because in a strange way, that small physical action of acknowledging, yes, this matters to me, seems to anchor the idea more firmly, the same way underlining a sentence in a book makes you more likely to remember it later. Now let's go deeper, because there are 3 specific shifts many people describe when they say they finally found this gateway. 3 thresholds you may recognize in your own life, even before this moment. The first threshold is the threshold of noticing. Before anything can shift, you have to catch the old pattern in the act. This means noticing without judging yourself, the exact moment scarcity thinking activates in your body. It might be a tightness in your chest when you check your bank balance. It might be a reflexive, "I can't," before you've even finished hearing an opportunity. Many people carry this pattern so automatically that they've never once watched it happen in real time. But the moment you notice it, really notice it, like watching a wave rise before it breaks, something curious happens. The pattern loses a small amount of its automatic power. Awareness, in this sense, isn't passive. It's the first active step through the gateway. The second threshold is the threshold of the felt state. This is where many spiritual explorations and some perspectives on consciousness seem to overlap in an interesting way. Both suggest that the state you occupy tends to matter more than the specific thoughts you think. Some people spend years trying to think their way into abundance, repeating affirmations while their body still feels tight, anxious, and unconvinced. But a growing number of teachers and explorers describe a different approach. Instead of trying to think your way there, you feel your way there. You borrow, even briefly, the physical sensation of already having what you seek. The loosened shoulders, the steady breath, the quiet unclenching in your stomach, and you let your body lead your mind instead of the other way around. The third threshold is the threshold of aligned action. This is the part often left out of these kinds of conversations, and I don't want to leave it out here because I think it matters. None of this replaces showing up, doing the work, making the calls, taking the steps that are actually available to you. The gateway isn't a replacement for effort. It's what effort feels like when it isn't coming from panic. Action taken from fear tends to feel like pushing a boulder uphill. Action taken from this quieter, steadier state tends to feel more like walking through a door that was already slightly open. Same door, both paths, but a very different experience of walking through it. Consider for a moment two people facing the exact same opportunity, say, a chance to start something new, a project, a small business, a change of direction entirely. The first person approaches it gripped by scarcity, every decision colored by "what if this fails?" Every conversation held with a kind of quiet desperation underneath it. Every setback interpreted as proof that they were right to be afraid all along. The second person approaches the very same opportunity from that steadier, more grounded state, not because their circumstances are any different, not because they have more money or more guarantees, but because something in how they're relating to the unknown has shifted. Setbacks, for this second person, tend to feel less like confirmations of doom and more like simple information, data to adjust course with, rather than evidence to give up. Same opportunity, same uncertainty, two entirely different inner experiences of walking through it. Many people who describe finding this gateway say this is precisely the shift they noticed first. Not that their outer world changed overnight, but that their relationship to uncertainty itself became less like drowning and more like swimming. I want you to sit with those three thresholds for a moment. Noticing, feeling, aligned action. Not as a rigid formula, but as a rhythm you can return to again and again, whenever the old scarcity pattern tries to reassert itself, because it will try. That's not a failure on your part. That's just how deeply worn old grooves tend to be. You don't chase wealth, you remember it. I want to pause here and be honest with you about something. This window, this particular moment of receptivity you're in right now, watching this, letting these ideas land, doesn't stay open forever. Not because some external force is closing it, but because life gets loud again. Notifications return, Old habits of thought reassert themselves the moment you close this tab. Many people have this exact experience, a flash of clarity, a genuine shift, only to let it slip through their fingers within an hour because they didn't do anything to anchor it while it was fresh. So here's something small and concrete I want to invite you to do right now before you keep scrolling through your day. In the comments below, write the phrase, "The gateway is open." Just that. Writing it isn't magic, but the act of externalizing an internal shift, putting it into words in a place other people will see it, tends to make people follow through on it more than if they simply thought it privately and moved on. There's something almost ceremonial about it, a small, deliberate marker that says, "I noticed this moment, and I chose not to let it pass unacknowledged." If you know someone in your life who has been quietly carrying the weight of scarcity, a friend who talks themselves out of opportunities before they even try, a family member stuck in a loop of "there's never enough," consider sending them this video. Not because it will fix everything for them in one watch, the way I couldn't promise that for you either, but because sometimes the most meaningful thing we can offer someone isn't an answer. It's a slightly different question than the one they've been asking themselves for years. Sharing this might be exactly that question, arriving at exactly the right moment for them, the way it may have arrived at the right moment for you. It's worth saying, too, that this isn't only about individual circumstance. Many people carry inherited patterns around money that were never fully theirs to begin with, passed down quietly across generations, absorbed long before they had the language to question them. Recognizing that a pattern is inherited doesn't erase it instantly, but it does something subtly powerful. It separates the pattern from your identity. It stops being who I am and starts being something I picked up along the way. And things we picked up can, with patience, be set back down. Let's talk for a moment about why so many people never find this gateway at all, even when it's been sitting quietly inside their own perception the entire time. It's rarely because they're incapable. It's almost always because they've never been shown that there's anything to look for. The dominant story most of us absorb, through family, through culture, through years of quiet repetition, is that wealth is external, competitive, scarce by nature, something that must be wrestled away from a limited pool that other people are also fighting for. And if that's the water you've been swimming in your whole life, of course it feels like the only reality. It's the only one you've ever been shown. But some perspectives, including certain interpretations drawn from quantum physics discussions about observation and possibility, though I want to be careful here and say these are philosophical extensions of scientific ideas rather than settled science itself, suggest that reality holds far more potential outcomes simultaneously than we tend to assume, and that the quality of attention we bring seems to play some role in which of those potentials becomes our lived experience. It's a provocative idea. It's also, admittedly, a debated and philosophically loaded one. I'm not asking you to take it as proven fact. I'm asking you to hold it as a possibility worth exploring, the way you might hold any idea that could meaningfully change how you move through your days. Because here's the thing about gateways. You don't need to fully understand the physics of a door to walk through it. So let's walk through it together, right now, for just a minute or two. If you're in a place where you can, let your shoulders drop. You don't need to close your eyes if you're driving or somewhere that requires your attention. Just let your body soften wherever you are. Take a breath in and let it out slowly. As you do, I want you to bring to mind not a specific dollar amount, not a specific outcome, but simply a feeling. the feeling of enough. The feeling of your shoulders unclenching because for this one moment, nothing is missing. Breathe in again, and as you exhale, imagine that feeling settling down through your chest, into your stomach, like warmth spreading through cold water. You're not manifesting a mansion. You're not manifesting a number. You're simply remembering what enough feels like in your body, because your body already knows. It has felt this before, in small moments you may have forgotten. A meal shared with someone you love. A morning with nowhere urgent to be. Your body remembers ease even when your mind insists it's never experienced it. Breathe in and let your hands rest, open, palms up if that feels natural to you. An open hand receives differently than a closed fist grips. Feel, breathe, allow, notice, soften, receive. There's no performance here. No one is watching whether you're doing this correctly. This is simply a few private breaths given to yourself in the middle of an ordinary day. And sometimes that's exactly where the gateway quietly reopens. Not in dramatic moments, in small, unremarkable ones like this. You don't chase wealth, you remember it. Let this settle for a moment before we continue. There's no need to rush it. Some people, doing this exact exercise, report a subtle sense of relief, like something they'd been holding onto too tightly finally loosened, even slightly. Others feel nothing dramatic at all, and that's completely fine too. This isn't about forcing a peak experience. It's about practicing, in small, repeatable moments, a different relationship with the idea of enough. Because that relationship, practiced consistently, tends to reshape the lens through which you see every opportunity that comes your way afterward. If this small pause gave you even a flicker of something, a slight loosening, a moment of quiet, let that be marked. Tap the like button now, not as a favor to this video, but as your own way of saying, I felt that. I want more of that. Let your breathing return to normal whenever you're ready. Bring your attention back to wherever you are. But carry this feeling with you as we move into the final and most important part of what I want to share with you today. Because here is the revelation underneath everything I've said so far. The one thing I want you to leave with, even if you forget every other word in this video. You were never actually locked out. There was never a gate with a lock on it that only certain fortunate people were handed the key to. What felt like a locked door was, in almost every case, a story. Inherited, absorbed, repeated so many times, it hardened into something that felt like fact. And a story, no matter how old, no matter how convincing, remains a story. Which means it can be rewritten. Not erased in one dramatic instant, but rewritten the way water reshapes stone, slowly, consistently, breath by breath, choice by choice. This is where the alchemist's work actually happens, not in some grand external achievement, but in the quiet, repeated transmutation of an old inner material into something new. Lead into gold was never really about literal metal in the old traditions that used that language. It was a metaphor for exactly this: the transformation of a dense, heavy, constricted inner state into something lighter, more expansive, more able to hold value without gripping it in fear. You are not separate from that process. You are, in this very moment, somewhere inside it. And I want to say this gently, but clearly. You are not the same person who clicked on this video a few minutes ago. Something has shifted, even if it's subtle, even if you can't fully name it yet. You've noticed a pattern you may not have noticed with this much clarity before. You've felt, even briefly, what enough feels like in your body instead of just as an idea in your head. That's not nothing. That's the beginning thread of an identity that relates to abundance differently than the one that existed an hour ago. This is not the end of that process. I want to be honest with you about that, because I don't want to oversell this moment as some kind of finish line. This is closer to a doorway you've just stepped through, a first threshold, not a final destination. The old pattern will likely try to reassert itself later today, tomorrow, next week. That's not a sign that this didn't work. That's simply what it looks like to walk a new path, while old grooves are still worn deep into the ground beside it. The work now is choosing, again and again, to walk the newer path, even when the older one still feels more familiar underfoot. You don't chase wealth, you remember it. If something in you has shifted during this video, even something small, even something you can't fully put into words yet, I'd invite you to write it in the comments as a simple declaration. I am remembering. Present tense, because this isn't a finished event. It's an ongoing unfolding, and naming it that way, in your own words, tends to make people more likely to keep returning to that unfolding instead of letting it fade by tomorrow morning. You are, in this sense, one of the people who didn't scroll past, who didn't ignore this. There's a quiet kind of company in that, countless others across very different circumstances, watching this same message, feeling some version of this same recognition, each walking their own version of this same threshold. You are not doing this alone, even though the work itself is deeply personal. So let's land this gently before we close. What we've walked through today isn't a technique to memorize or a formula to apply perfectly. It's a perspective, a lens, that you can return to anytime you notice the old scarcity pattern tightening its grip again. Notice the pattern without judgment. Feel in your body what enough actually feels like, even briefly. Let action follow from that steadier place, rather than from panic. That's the rhythm, not a rule book. A rhythm you can come back to, imperfectly, again and again, for the rest of your life if you choose to. I haven't shared this widely, and I want to be honest that this particular framing, thresholds, felt states, the alchemist's inner transmutation, draws from perspectives that aren't usually laid out this plainly in most everyday conversations about money. Some of it borrows from older contemplative traditions that treated inner state as inseparable from outer circumstance. Some of it borrows from more recent, still debated ideas at the edges of how consciousness and perception might relate to experienced reality. I've tried to bring both together here, not as proven fact, but as a doorway worth walking through and testing for yourself, in your own life, at your own pace. There is more to this than what a single video can hold. There are deeper layers to this gateway, specific practices for the moments when old fear resurfaces hardest, ways of working with the body when the mind refuses to cooperate, and a closer look at what many describe as the actual moment of threshold crossing, the exact instant an old identity gives way to a new one. I'll be exploring those in the videos that follow this one, and if any part of today resonated with you, that's exactly where we'll go next together. I want to leave you with one more thought before we close, because I think it matters more than anything else I've said today. None of this requires you to believe anything blindly. You don't have to accept a single word of this as absolute truth. All I'm asking is that you stay curious enough to test it, To notice, over the coming days, whenever the old scarcity pattern tightens in your chest, and to gently ask yourself, is this actually true right now? Or is this simply an old, well-worn groove asking to be walked again out of habit? That question alone, asked honestly and repeated often enough, tends to be enough to start loosening even the oldest patterns. You don't need certainty to begin. You only need enough openness to take the next small step. Before you go, if you haven't already, subscribe. Think of it less as following a channel and more as choosing to stay tuned to this particular frequency, so that when the next layer of this unfolds, you're already there for it, already anchored, instead of stumbling back onto it by chance months from now. And if there's one person in your life who needs to hear that they were never actually locked out, send them this. Not as a fix, as a door, left open, in case they're ready to walk through it too. You don't chase wealth, you remember it. Carry that with you today. Not as a slogan, as something closer to the truth. Quiet, steady, already yours, waiting only for you to notice it again. Thank you for staying until the end. Thank you for being someone who didn't ignore this. I'll see you in the next one.